It's a,
We are online.
is Esteban gonna point at me?
He will point at you after the intro thing, because we start streaming, and then after we start streaming, we're making sure everything looks good, and then we do the intro music thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So how are you doing?
Huh?
I said, so how are you doing?
How am I doing?
Yeah.
How you doing?
Okay. So tell me what to point at. Test. Can you hear me? Yeah.
We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. I'm Joshua Phillip, senior investigative reporter with the Epoch Times, and we stand for truth and tradition. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This isn't just a mission of the paper, it's a mission of those involved in it. It's something we truly
Good
believe
morning,
in.
welcome to church.
The Epoch Times
I
is
am Justin
independent.
Peterson.
We're not controlled by
Thank you so
any
much for being
special
with me.
interest, and we never will.
Happy Easter.
The Epoch Times is a
It is
nonpartisan
Easter.
media. That
We're
means
gonna
we
talk
don't
about
stand
that,
for any
whatever's on
political
your
party.
mind.
Our values are truth.
You can
This is a battle between truth
on
and
YouTube
deceit.
chat line.
A battle
I can
between
respond to your
forces that would
questions and
enslave this
comments.
country in darkness
And
between a
also,
media that wants
You
to
can
present
call
you with
in
the
at
truth.
888-77.
Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
So it's Easter, right? We have a special guest for you. Why you making that noise? Francisco is here. Francisco Martinez. It's Easter, right? We have a special guest for you. Almost 30 years. And he's going to come up and for about 15 minutes talk about Christmas. Easter. Francisco is here. We are celebrating Francisco Martinez. He's been a part of the Bond Church service for the last almost 30 years. And he's going to come up and for about 15 minutes talk about Easter, why we are celebrating Easter, how it came about, and all that good stuff. Why we should celebrate it. And then I'll come back up and take your phone calls and your emails and not emails, but questions and things like that, all right? So happy Easter. Francisco is here. He's going to come up. He's been a member of Bond for over almost 30 years, if not 30 years, almost 30 years for sure. And you're going to talk about Easter, all right? And then I'll come back up and take your calls and things. 888-77-53773. Welcome to church. Happy Easter. All right, here's Francisco.
You know, this is the day, this represents the day of Christ's resurrection.
I'm Francisco.
How are you? Happy Easter. He arose on this day.
I think Easter is really important.
Is very important. I grew up Catholic, and so in the Catholic religion,
you know, this is the day, this represents the day of Christ's resurrection.
In my teenage years, I can't rebel.
He arose on this day, and tradition is very important. I grew up Catholic, and so in Catholic religion, there's a lot of rituals. And I didn't like it in my teenage years. I kind of rebelled. But I understand it as an adult now. This helps you to remember. It helps you to be a part of it, to remember that day.
Time actually starts and stops.
This is representing a man who
and it was talked about
made the biggest changes for especially Christians on earth. Time actually starts and stops with his
being spit out after that.
So, and it was talked about even in the past. You guys have all heard the story of Jonah and the whale, being in the belly of the fish for 3 days and being spit out after that. And you've also heard of,
what does it mean for us?
well, even Christ talks about you shall destroy the temple, and in 3 days it will rise again. So it was talked about even during Christ's time.
Possibly did. We would not have a path
so
back to
what does it mean for us?
Be with God. Be with Christ.
without Christ being dying on the cross, so in the beginning, we would not have a path, we would not have a path back to be with God, to be with Christ. And so, in the beginning, it talks about Christ specifically during his, specifically during Christ, his time, especially and it talks about the last part when he was Christ, on the cross, and he specifically during his being taunted and whipped, and specifically during Christ, his time, and he was especially the last part was when he was on the cross. And he specifically said 7 different things. Christ says, Father, forgive them, for they know not being taunted and whipped and being humiliated. The next item, he said, and he was treated like a slave, like a thief. One of the thieves were mocking him. And he says, Christ says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Why are you mocking him? He's innocent. And the next item, he said, no reason to be here, to the thief. And one of the thieves were mocking him, and the other thief said, you shall be in paradise. Who? Why are you mocking him? He's innocent. He has nothing, no reason to be here. And that's when Christ said to him, today you shall be in paradise. Who was probably the first man in heaven was the thief right after Christ. All alone. He felt all the sins. The third thing he mentioned about taking care of his mother. The next thing, fourth thing, for water, God, why hast thou forsaken me? You know, being evil, they felt all alone and abandoned. Vinegar. He felt all the sins. The next thing he mentioned that it's finished. The next thing he thirsts for water, and the last thing he says to God, being evil, they taunted him with vinegar. Upon that, the next thing he mentioned that it's finished. When he died, and then he put his spirit. The last thing he says to God, I put my spirit into your hands. Holy temple, and upon that, he died. And when he died, it also mentions there were earthquakes.